Hello, learner. Welcome to Mr. Quaker's Teachers. In this poem, I'll be giving a detailed analysis of Judith Wright's poem, Request to a Year. In the poem, she speaks about her great-great-grandmother with admiration and pride, almost as if she's sort of like a mythical figure or a folklore, someone that people have come to associate with the arts. I'll speak about the themes in the poem, the figures of speech, the point of view, the poet's tone, the mood, the structure of the poem, the poetic devices, rhyme, and other stylistic devices that Judith Wright uses to strikingly present her admiration for what appears to be her long deceased great-great-grandmother or female forebearer. Let's dive into the analysis. Let me begin by speaking about the poet Judith Wright. She was born on the 31st of May 1915 and died on the 25th of June 2000. She was an Australian poet, environmentalist, and campaigner for Aboriginal land rights. So she campaigned on behalf of the Aboriginals. She was also a recipient of the Christopher Brennan Award. So that's like a brief sort of note on the poet. Now, in terms of the poem, this is how the poem appears in your anthology. If you observe, the poem has 22 lines. If it has 5 quatrain stanzas, quatrain means 5 stanzas with 4 lines, and then 1 couplet. Actually, it's a rhyming couplet. I'm going to speak about it in the elements of literature analysis. So please listen to that. In that analysis, I go into more detail about why she uses the couplet stanza as the last stanza. I mean, the effect that it creates. Now, in this poem, Wright speaks about her great-great-grandmother, a female forebearer, and then speaks of her as someone who is very artistic and as someone who, in one of the most precarious situations that any woman's child will ever find themselves, she decides to draw. And not only draw or sketch, Wright tells us that there's evidence of that sketch in their house, and that for her, the strength of her female forebearer's hand to draw in such a situation is what she desires for Mother's Day. Now, let me begin by reading the poem, Request to a Year by Judith Wright. If the year is meditating a suitable gift, I should like it to be the attitude of my great-great-grandmother, legendary devotee of the arts, who, having had 8 children and little opportunity for painting pictures, sat one day on a high rock beside a river in Switzerland, and from a difficult distance viewed her second son, balanced on a small ice floe, drove down the current towards a waterfall that struck rock bottom 80 feet below. While her second daughter, impeded no doubt by the petticoats of the day, stretched out a last hope alpenstock, which luckily later caught him on his way. Nothing, it was evident, could be done, and with the artist's isolating eye, my great-great-grandmother hastily sketched the scene. The sketch survives to prove the story by. Yeah. If you have no Mother's Day present planned, reach back and bring me the firmness of a hand. So that's the reading of the poem. Now let's begin the analysis. Now, Wright opens the poem with a conjecture. That means there's no certainty in a word. So she opens the poem with a conjecture that shows that she's not 100% certain about what the year is planning with the words, if the year is meditating a suitable gift. Now, we're going to see, for example, that she personifies the year twice, in the opening and then the closing stanza of the poem. The word if signals that she's conjecturing or is unsure. Also, her referencing the object of her attention as the year suggests that she's speaking about a specific year, while it's meditating personifies the year and shows that it is capable of deep thought. So she says the year. So she's speaking here about a particular year, and then when she says it's meditating, it means the year is able to engage in thoughts, think deeply, and that's really, really powerful, because it appears here that she's speaking directly to the personified year. Also, the word meditate in the present continuous tense of meditate communicates that the personified year is still engrossed in deep thought while she is speaking. So it can still change its mind and give in to her demands. Meditating also creates the impression that the personified year is engaged in conscious, intense, and deliberate thought. So you see here that Wright personifies the year for effect to show that she's speaking directly to something that can respond to her words and act accordingly. A suitable gift is the poet's way of saying that some gifts are more appropriate than others. So that's what she's saying here, that some gifts are more appropriate than others. And for me, one of the striking things I find in the poem is the fact that Wright does not ask for any whimsical thing. She asks for something that has like sentimental value, and something that she knows is very bespoke to her and her family, and something that she suspects is going to be a challenge for the year to get. So a suitable gift is the poet's way of saying that some gifts are more appropriate than others. And in a way, even the year realizes this, which is why it is taking its time to come up with something appropriate. Finally, Wright's expression, if the year is meditating a suitable gift, is less direct because her words show that she is not speaking directly to the personified year. So in this first stanza, Wright is speaking, it's almost as if she has like this, almost like a soliloquy, kind of. And she wishes that, the year is going to hear her and then respond to her. But in the final stanza, we're going to see that she's a bit more direct. So she says, if the year, it's like you being in your house and saying, if my mother wants to buy me something, your wish, that's something like a wishful thinking. So she's not speaking here, she's not very direct. If the year is meditating a suitable gift, it's less direct because her word shows that she's not speaking directly to the personified year in this instance, but is rather engaged in wishful thinking that she hopes the personified year will hear and respond to. Now, in the poem's second and third lines, the poet speaking with the first person narrative voice. Now, this is really important because the poetic voice that we hear here, if it's right or just a poetic voice, is speaking for themselves, right? So we see here the first person narrative voice, evidenced by a use of I, the first person pronoun, singular pronoun I. Request, I should like it to be the attitude before using enjambment and flowing into the third line and continuing of my great-great-grandmother. Wright's expression, I should like it to be, presents her as polite and meek. So she's not, she's not like somebody that is presumptuous. She doesn't presume that or think that she deserves it. I should like it. There's this sort of politeness and meekness in a tone around this point. Now, the expression that's I should like it to be also shows that she's leaving the final decision to the personified year. But she's going to infuse what she needs. But then she's leaving the final decision to the personified year because she trusts its judgment and knows that it's in charge. She cannot compel it to do what she pleases. As Wright continues, she becomes more direct in her request by clearly defining her request as the attitude of my great-great-grandmother. So here she tells what she needs. So Wright does not ask for, a car or anything else. She asks for the attitude of her great-great-grandmother. Although a request comes across as basic and uninteresting, the word attitude is a very loaded word. That word attitude is very loaded because it encapsulates her great-great-grandmother's outlook, right? Her outlook on life, her beliefs, her way of thinking, her values, her character, other things. When you say someone's attitude, is almost like the internal makeup of the person. So when she says, that's how heavy that word is, of her forebearer, who she refers to as my great-great-grandmother. the phrase of mine shows that her ancestor embodied the attribute of mine. It's like something that belonged to her great-great-grandmother. That's a fascinating poem. So she embodied it in a very unique way. Of mine also suggests that it belonged to a forebearer. So it was hers. It was something that the woman possessed with mastery. Now, great-great-grandmother exposes to the reader that Wright is asking for the ability of a relative from 4 generations ago. So someone that is presumably dead. So it's a possibility that a great-great-grandmother is dead. Maybe she heard stories about her. This is important because it shows that she is knowledgeable about the personality and character traits of her ancestors. So she's very knowledgeable about her ancestors. That is, she's well versed in her family's history and finds it fascinating and desirable. So she finds it very, very fascinating and something that she desires, something that is desirable, something that she would want for herself. Wright ends the first question stanza by describing her deceased female ancestor as legendary devotee of the arts. So she's a legendary devotee of the arts. Now, the term legendary shows that the story of a great-great-grandmother has been shared so widely that it has become very popular and well known. So it's like something that is legendary. Like the folklore of the news and all of those other folklore. It's something that people know. So here she says that she's legendary devotee of the arts. Legendary also adds a touch of unbelievability and unrealness to the memory of her forebearer and her achievement. Because something is legendary, it is beyond ordinary. In fact, legendary suggests that Wright's female ancestors' memory has become something of a folklore. It's like a bedtime story, something that, the story that people tell their children about a woman who once did this great thing that nobody has been able to replicate since. Now, devotee suggests that Wright's great-great-grandmother worshipped the arts and gave and immersed herself in it like a disciple. She was devoted to it. Devotee also communicates that she was totally dedicated to the arts. Body, spirit, and soul. So every part of her was devoted to the arts. Wright then uses of the arts to highlight her forebear's love for creativity and the humanities that usually manifests in activities like penning poetry, painting, creating artisanal crafts, etc. So she was someone who could make things with her hand, work of arts. Legendary devotee of the arts. She was someone who loved artwork and artistry. So everybody knew her. Presumably in the entire area knew her. Furthermore, the description devotee of the arts implies that her great-great-grandmother had a very intense dedication and appreciation for the arts. In addition, legendary devotee of the arts sounds like an appellation, like a title that is being conferred on a dead matriarch by her contemporaries, those who were there when her great-great-grandmother was alive. They conferred on her the title of devotee of the legendary devotee of the art. Her contemporaries, they saw how unique and extraordinary achievements were, and so they conferred that title on her. Because of her matchless dedication to creativity and artistic expression. So that's what we see about Wright's great-great-grandmother, someone who loved the arts. Now, finally, legendary devotee of the arts tells that Wright's great-great-grandmother's love for the arts was not a mere hobby. So it's not something she was just doing like a hobby or a pastime. It was her way of life. And she was driven by a passion to do it. Hello, learner. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson so far. This is a sample video analysis of this poem. To access the full analysis, purchase it or the entire course with detailed analysis of all the 15 poems, the elements of literature in each poem, and IGCSE style questions, both passage-based, and general. There are also A-star quality sample essays as well at mrquakersteaches.com. Find the links in the description. See you in class.